Okay,
All right.
here it is. Monday. No, Tuesday. Okay, so here it is. Tuesday. What do you want to spring on me today?
Yeah. Good question. I don't even know. Excited to get some people to call in and maybe they'll dictate this one. But yeah, I've nothing. I have nothing. I
I
just
was partially serious there. I really don't want you to dig something out of that grab bag and go, here you go, Ray. Run.
yeah, no, I did just have a conversation with my friend about some Bitcoin stuff, driving him to the airport, and it got into Jekyll and Hyde, so or Jekyll Island. And so yeah, I figured I'd give us some time in between deep dives into the darkness of the system before getting back into that. But
Well, that's a good
of
idea. We appreciate that for sure. Just
course.
because, you can focus on that all day long for days and days and days and years and years and years. And it's not going to make a dent because, quite frankly, you're just going to feel paralyzed by it and it's going to go on despite you. But if you get right in there, if you just participate in life fully, at least you're taking advantage of all the ripples that you can make. And that's making a difference. And that's the whole point. So before we go any further, I just want to make a quick announcement that this is our call-in show, as Andrew mentioned. So if you would like to join us for 10-ish minutes, you can do so by going to dualistiCunity.com/live. There is a form that you'll have to fill in. There's a little checkbox with some agreements that you agree that this is going to be an episode after the fact, that we're going to publish this for the rest of our audience, and you're aware of that, and you don't mind putting yourself out there. You can join us. And it's that simple. And I wanted to cover this very quickly because I get a lot of messages from people. And in those messages, I hear, I would like to talk to you guys. I would love to talk to the community, but I don't feel comfortable putting myself out there. I don't feel comfortable exposing myself to everybody. That didn't quite sound right. But the point is, I don't feel comfortable getting out there and being vulnerable. And I just want to say, even if I were to talk to you face to face, just you and me, one-on-one, I can't do anything about that. There isn't a single thing that I can do that's going to make that go away, except to encourage you to ignore it. That's it. And the first step is now. The first step's now. It could be anything. You could jump onto one of our group Zooms and just chat something in terms of the text. You can just text it. We'll respond to you. You want to get on there and use your voice, you can do that too. You can do that in any of our live shows, just in the comment section, express yourself. Or in terms of this call-in show, you can just take the leap, come on the show and talk to us directly. And we are happy to listen to you. And I am happy to talk to you, but please understand, I don't have a magic wand. I'm not a pharmacist. I cannot provide a simple solution to anything outside of reminding you that you'll get through it. As long as you don't get in your own way, you will find a way. That's all I'm ever going to say to you. I can't make you try that out. I can't make you take that leap. I can't make you do anything. And it wouldn't help if I could. You have to leap. You have to leap. There's no way around it. Just know you'll never feel prepared to do so, ever. But the more you do it, the better you get at landing and leaping.
Exactly. There is no substitute to taking action. And yeah, I mean, that's what Ray just said is pretty much the extent of the spiel and reminders that someone could give you in that situation. If you're afraid of doing something, like, you can go read all the books, go to all the therapists, do all the coaching one-on-ones, do all the things, but taking that step, the one that you're very afraid of taking, there is no alternative. There is no better thing that you could do than doing the thing and doing it scared, and very likely recognizing that it wasn't anything that you thought it was inside of your mind. And so, yeah, I think if there's anything to do. I mean, and that's the beauty of, I think, so much of what we're doing with Dualistic Unity is for someone who is uncomfortable in certain situations, who is uncomfortable putting themselves out there, sharing their point of view, even just like talking on a podcast or a live stream or in a group or anything. Like there are so many opportunities for you to practice that. You know, whether it's we do a free group Zoom call every single Wednesday, and there's usually at least 30, 40, 50 people on there. So if that's something you're super afraid of, like get on and just say, hey guys, I got nothing to say, but I was super afraid of doing this, and this is me doing it. And there will be a conversation that comes of that. Like that's all you got to do. And even if your voice is wavering, if your heart is pounding through your throat, like even just taking that step, you're like, okay, now I'm here. And we've had people come on who've said that, and they've been then talking for 2 minutes straight, and they're like, oh my God, I was very afraid. And now that fear isn't so much there, but it's going to keep building and get more and more intense until you take that step. That taking that step is the opportunity for it to begin to subside. And so I really enjoy the fact that we have all of these opportunities for people to take those steps and recognize that, you know, they can do that. And you can do it with us, who are two people who have been through the thick of that fear and worry and everything, and are not judgmental at all. And so it's you know, it's about as safe a space as you can find for it. But you know, we can't tell you anything that you don't already know, and that is going to replace taking that leap.
Absolutely. It's interesting. It helps to look at the fear in a certain way. Well, this conversation helps in terms of seeing the fear in a different way. And we got into this in our community topics episodes on emotion, that our emotions are indicating a spectrum that we currently exist within that is largely dependent on how committed we are to our perspective of being divided from one another. The less divided we feel from everybody else, the less fear we have, or at least the fear starts to change into something else. And so when you look at it that way, you start to recognize that what you're afraid of, or at least the fear itself, not what you're afraid of, because fear will just find any reason to manifest. It'll find any reason to justify itself. It's a lot like fire. It's just looking for oxygen. And that means that you can diminish it by withholding that oxygen. Right? But it's not all at once. It's huge, right? It's like the question, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? It may be this massive endeavor, but each and every bite diminishes what you have to go through. The problem is that often we have no idea why the fear is there, let alone what it's pointing us towards. And so we don't understand that in facing it, we are diminishing it. We don't understand that there is a way to peel it away layer by layer. So that way it is in fact instructing us instead of just weighing us down.
Absolutely. And each layer you peel back, you learn something that you can take from, and each layer you peel back to, each layer you chew on, each tiny little step you take allows you to resonate with other people super well too. Like every level of that chewing away of that fear, of that taking that step, despite, like, no matter how you feel, will allow you to not only take the next step, but also anyone who comes around who's like, oh, super, you know, worried about this, you can have a conversation with them. You can connect with them on a deeper level. You can share your experience of, oh yeah, I was there for a while. I spent a long time. Like I'd love when I talk to people who are worried about getting into content, being able to say, like, I spent a full year and a half knowing without a shadow of a doubt that I wanted to get into making videos and putting myself out there. And I didn't do it. And I knew more clearly than anything I've ever known that I wanted to start doing it. And it took me a year and a half. That was like fucking, I don't know, 550 days every single morning going through it, knowing. And until finally it was like, all right, I just don't have a choice anymore. I got to take this step. Whatever happens, happens. And that was the moment I succeeded, was because I started.
That's funny. I can relate to that, except for me, it seems like it was much longer. Seems like I went through quite a few phases to finally get to the point where I'm like, yeah, fuck it. let's get into the conversation. Just wanted to mention that we have somebody in the queue, of course, Ben, who has been on the show before, and we always love talking to him. I just want to mention again to everybody listening that if you would like to join us on screen, you can do so. You don't have to actually be on screen. You can just talk to us through audio. Just go to dualisticunity.com/live, and you can fill that in, and then you'll be in the queue, and we will get to you as soon as possible. All right, I will let Ben in. Always great to see Ben. He's a frequent member of the community and often full of insight. Today, he would like to talk about getting challenged. How's it going, Ben?
Hey, Ben. How's it going, man?
Going quite well. It's a really sunny day here. But just came back from being outside for a while.
Where'd he go?
I think we lost Ben somewhere in the queue. We're going to give him a few minutes before we move on because we do have somebody else in the queue. So, Andrew, if you don't mind doing some announcements about upcoming events and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have our Vancouver Island retreat coming up in about a week and a half, which is fucking awesome. A pending retreat in June. TBD on that. We'll keep everyone posted. Those announcements will most likely be on Patreon primarily. So if you want to be involved in that, definitely get on Patreon. And it looks like Ben is back. That's all I got for now.
Game on.
Ben, what is up?
Car.
Sorry, I clicked a button and then it just shit itself.
Oh, no worries at all. You're talking about how nice it is out there, and you're just getting back inside from being outside for a while.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, getting challenged. So I guess I caused a ripple this weekend. I put out a dress video. Ray saw it. Yeah, but yeah, it was one of those I'm not wearing a woman's dress. I'm just not naked kind of thing. And yeah, my one friend contacted me later that night and he was like, "Hey, I don't really understand your message. So do you want to talk about it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we basically started off with, we agreed that, it's okay to let people wear whatever they want. But that was pretty much the end of it, because the second we got deeper, I was like, yeah, concepts are never the truth. And then he just disagreed vehemently with me, with every single thing I said. He was like, no, 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 no. The denial was so intense. And one of the things I was saying, so this conversation was an hour long. And one of the things was, time doesn't exist, I said. And he was like, he cut me off. He cut me off so many times, interrupted me with the no, 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 no's. And was like, time it's measurable. You can measure it. And I'm like, I know, but with what instruments? And can you actually what's what?
And at what speed?
Yeah. How perfect are those instruments, and how do you determine the actual duration of a second? And another part was there were so many things. One was just getting lost. But yeah, the disagreements, and he was saying, okay, all right, I'm God and I'm you. And then he was like, okay, that is absolutely not true. And we got on about truth. And the first thing was, he said that you are wearing a dress. And I'm like, okay, but it's just fabric. And he was like, I mean, everyone thinks that it's a dress, so it's a dress. Go. And then he was telling me, go in the dictionary and look at the word dress. I'm pretty sure you'll find what you're wearing. And I'm like, yo, it's just a dictionary, man. Those are all agreements. And he was like, yeah, but we need to agree for society to continue on and progress. And like every time I just said like I don't really, I mean, they're not none of that is true. And he was just like trying so hard. It seemed exhausting from his point of view to try to get me to get on his side. And eventually I was like, why do you want me to agree with you so much? And he's like, because we need to agree. I'm like, bro, that's not it. And the part that he was most just like intensely in disagreement about was that I was saying I recognize that I'm God. And he was like, that is not a recognition, that is a belief. And then he kept saying like, listen, man, it's America, you know, I can believe what I can believe, you can believe what you can believe. And I'm just like, dude, it's not a belief. And he was saying, you know, I don't mind when people like, I don't mind people practicing their own beliefs, but don't tell me that it's not a belief. Like, I'm just going to say, fuck off. And I'm like, okay, if you say that, then you're not listening anymore. And then I also asked him once, like, so have you ever meditated? And he was like, no, I don't really do that. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't need meditation, but it definitely helps to like not think about yourself. And then I asked him, is there anything, this is a good Andrew question, is there anything that you're suffering from that doesn't have to do with the idea of yourself? And he thought about it. And then he was like, okay, I live in a barn, I think he said, and it's fucking cold. And that is something that I'm suffering through. And I'm like, yeah, as long as you label it cold and you identify as something that can be cold. And he just like didn't understand at all. And I just wanted to say, like, maybe we should hang up and you should start thinking about this stuff. It took me like a year. I mean, the recognition was in a moment, but then it took me like a year to unravel everything. So I'm just like at a different spot than you, and maybe you should start thinking about that stuff. But I didn't tell him that. And that kind of, yeah, we just kind of ended it after that. But it's really interesting because I know you guys also deal with this stuff. I love seeing how you comment back on Instagram. Like, I love, like, Andrew does a great job of responding, and Ray will literally say like 5 words with a crying emoji, like a laughing. It's hilarious. But yeah, that's something that I went through last weekend.
I totally feel you, man. I've been through that a number of times, and you know, the ins and outs definitely I don't know, each time you go through it with a different person with a different degree of clarity, it kind of shifts your perspective as you go. So it's absolutely an awesome practice. I think as you keep going through it, you know, and the deeper you go with it, you start wondering even, you know, whose mind are you trying to change with it? And I think this is something that has helped me, certainly, is the recognition that, you know, through the recognition that it's only your mind. There are no other minds. As your mind changes, as your mind shifts and continues to question, it is shifting their mind because they don't have a separate mind. Your friend's mind is not anything separate from yours. So when we get into it with people, there is no one's mind you're trying to really change or impact outside of your own. And even, you know, the perception that there is another mind to change kind of goes in the face of recognizing that it's all you and there is no other. And this is only me speaking from having gone through so many conversations you just described and getting so angry and frustrated that it just kind of, as you continue to question your process of going through those types of situations. And I think even just relaxing into that reality that as your mind changes, everyone's mind changes, maybe doesn't happen like as quickly as you would prefer, but also, why do you prefer it to happen quickly? And the understanding that you don't have to change anyone else's mind, and there is the very real reality of cognitive dissonance out there, and they're heavily invested in not hearing anything that you say. I think all of those conversations or understandings have definitely helped me. But I feel, yeah, I just got into it with one of my buddies about Bitcoin for a little while, and he refused to, acknowledge much of what I was saying. So yeah, if I don't know, those have certainly helped me.
Yeah. Remember, there's a learning curve, and we're not always aware of that. We have this tendency of thinking that I think this way, everybody's got to think this way, or rather, everybody thinks about things in with the degree of clarity that I do. I've had somebody laugh at me for mentioning that trees are aware of their environment. Laugh straight up. What? Oh, that's so stupid. It's like, it grows and knows where the sun is. It's pretty aware of its environment. But there's that cognitive dissonance. And it's because what you're asking them to do is open their eyes to the fact that the world's fucking huge. Huge. And so they're banking on certainty. That's why they don't want to talk about concepts. They don't want to talk about the fact that the description is not the described. They don't want to talk about what you're talking about in terms of God. They're just like, nope, that's a belief. And you're like, well, yeah, well, hold on. And it's like, no, there's no conversation to have, because you're already wrong. So you're already wrong. There's nowhere to go there. And so I don't even bother. I'm just like, do your thing. Let me know when you're done suffering, if you want to. You've got your whole life ahead of you, and that's it. You can let it bother you, but at the end of the day, that's you. And at one point, you were just as lost. You were just as skeptical about certain things, guaranteed, because we all get lost in our shit, right? And so just, all right, off you go. Soft hands, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I came at it all from the perspective of like, yeah, I don't need you to agree with me at all. But I guess I'm like finding that balance of you want to keep talking, I will keep talking about it. I'll go to the end, and then also just like letting it ride out. It's an interesting balance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're not always going to be appreciated for it. I just want to mention that change isn't always pleasant. We're not here to be liked. We're here to be authentic. Right. And then the rest really just happens on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it gets easier as you go to I don't know, just understand that they're in their own spot, going through their own sort of shit, and it's not your duty to convince them or change them by any means. But yeah, it also, each time you go through it, you get a little more both sensitive and understanding of where they're at and how lost they are, and how much that drive for certainty is going to infiltrate everything that they say, basically.
Yeah, I just wanted to just close it off with like, the conversation ended with, as long as you're doing okay, I'm fine with whatever. And he said the same thing. Like, yeah, if you're living a happy life, that's cool. So yeah, I guess it was cool, but it was an interesting challenge, and it helped like me think about it also.
That's the point. It's all you just processing what you are.
Absolutely. Well, thanks guys for having me on. Always a great time.
Always great to have you, Ben.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that retreat that's going to happen soon. I will be in Tamarindo in 1 week from now.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. Enjoy it, man.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. See you guys.
See you again soon.
See you, Ben.
I always love talking to Ben. Always insightful. And it's always a good reminder that, there is not always going to be the response that you want from people. And it's important to tread softly to some degree. And I've said this about negative people, so on and so forth. When they can still influence you and sway you, maybe steer clear of it. But once you start to get to the point where you're like, no, This isn't a belief. I'm not holding on to the we are one concept. This is something I'm actually seeing in my life as it unfolds before me. So at that point, you're pretty solid. You're grounded. You're not opposed to questions. That's the thing. You're like, go ahead, ask questions. But that's when you start to realize most people aren't asking questions. Most people are asking you questions with an answer expected from you. And if that answer is not correct and it doesn't validate what their answer is, then the problem is you. And so it's important to remember you can't always get across to those people at all. We actually have lost somebody from the queue. So I'm going to pass it to the next person in a second. Just give me a second. I got to go and, oh no, we know this person. It's Amanda.
Hey, Amanda.
Amanda, who has just gotten back from a week of adventuring and is now recuperating.
Yes.
Great to see you.
Hey, what's up, Amanda?
Great to see you.
Hey, I am in bed. I am resting. There's proof. There's proof. There's a pillow. There's a bed. But so good to be back. So good to see you guys. I just got hit with an insight today. So I was talking with a dear friend a couple of days ago, and they had said, I look forward to being your friend for many years to come. And it's not because of what you can do, but because of who you are. And, it was beautiful, and I appreciated it then. And then I forgot about it. And then it came back today. And I was like, fuck, I don't really value who I am. I value what I can do, my mental and physical abilities. I value my skill set most of the time, if not all of the time. And then, I cried a little bit because I was like, fuck, like, how can I want someone to appreciate who I am if I don't appreciate it? And then I was thinking about just that sentence, I value my existence. And then I was like, but it's not really mine. So I broke the sentence down even further, and it was like, I value existence. And then the thought came, and it was like, just drop the I. And it was like, okay, value existence. Because I was thinking, like, how do you do it? Like, how do I value who I am? And it's because who isn't really a who. It's not a person. It's not even Amanda. It's valuing existence it's easy because existence is everything. And so it definitely hit home in a beautiful way. And I wanted to share that with everyone, because I know that I'm not the only one who struggles with trying to value what you can do and who you are and what your life is and your choices. And somebody suggested in the Discord, like, for a community topic, regret. And I was like, regret is just bullshit, because we're so much more than our choices. We're so much more than what we think and what we can do. And so just to hear someone say, like, I value, who you are. And I was like, I do too. And I value who we all are. So it was just really nice to feel that, and not in a conceptual way, because we all do a lot of thinking. So it just was really, really powerful to feel that valuing of existence beyond what I think I am or what I can do. And it included everyone. And it was just so nice, because I was like, if I value existence, but valuing existence as a whole, that ripples out to everyone. And I value everything and everyone in it. And it was just so nice to just be in that moment. So I do want to thank everybody, because this was a group effort. I definitely couldn't have felt this as a single individual, just thinking about my own character. It was something that we all felt, and everyone that I've talked to, everyone that I haven't talked to, we all did that. We all did that and felt that together, because existence is all encompassing. And so I just wanted to share that. I love you guys.
I love you too, Amanda, very much. And I remember very clearly that phase of my life where I started to recognize I'm just stoked to exist. And then it dawned on me, oh, that's because I'm existence. That's just me being myself.
Yeah. Yeah. But oh my goodness, it's so beautiful that, you know, we give so much weight to words, or we give so much weight to concepts, and then you think that things don't matter, or you think that things matter more than they do. Like I value skills, I value what I can do much more than existence itself, or someone will say something, and I think that it doesn't stick, and then it comes back and it reverberates. And I love that existence is almost like a boomerang. You know, you don't feel things in the same way all the time, or you don't see things in the same way, but then it comes back to you. And it was always there, but it comes back in a way when you're more open to it. And it just felt like such a bigger feeling than just appreciating Amanda, or just appreciating my perspective. It felt like it was the universe appreciating the universe, because we're all in this together. And so I really wanted to make sure that I didn't keep that feeling to just my own experience, but that I shared it, because I wanted everyone to know that I felt them, and that we felt each other in a way that just isn't so small, so individualized, you know. Because I really struggled with that question this morning. I was like, you know, how do I value who I am? And it's like, because it's not valuing who, it's just valuing everything, you know. So it made it so easy. I was like, oh, no shit, Amanda. Here you are, trying to make things so difficult, trying to make things into a fucking a project. Like, well, how do I value me? You know. And it was like, because me doesn't fucking exist in the way that I think it does. Me is really we, you know.
Beautifully, beautifully said, Amanda. I think that shift from from who you are to what you are is fucking powerful one. I go through that, you know, getting caught up in shit a couple times a week, and then it's like, who's shit? What am I? Oh yeah, no, that's not what I am. That's a grand fucking mirage that I'm getting caught up in, and all the shit
Yeah.
going through my head, and I'm like, I'm going through shit. Is all Andrew. That's not me. And then you come back to that. It's like, oh well, shit. Okay. I can let that go. There's still like almost like a residual feeling sometimes to going through it. And it's like your brain's just like dealing with the rest of it. But as soon as it drops, it's like that process can go back to starting. And it's the who.
Yeah.
That's the illusion. Yeah.
It really is. And I know it'll come back. You know, I'm not thinking that, oh, we've had this moment. That's it. Work done. Clocking out of the universe, fucking shift of work. Like, I fully expect to feel like an I again. I feel like an I, even in the middle of feeling like a giant we. You know, it's not supposed to be just one thing at any, it's always changing, and it's just being okay. And I'm just so curious. I'm so curious to just see what other experiences happen, not even insights, because it's fun. I have a good time being Amanda, you know, like I have a good time getting to know other characters. I have a good time talking to people, having an individual experience. But it's so nice to just not really be looking for Amanda right now, and just being okay with feeling like the room that I'm in, the building that I'm in, the city that I'm in, the planet that I'm not stuck on, but like glued to with gravity, and in the universe. It just feels so beautiful to feel like this we on so many levels. And yet to still feel like the I, and inside the I is a we. So I almost feel like a Russian doll, like a universal Russian doll. Like there's just like bottles and bottles inside of it. And I'm like, when's the next bottle? I was like, who knows? Who knows when we'll meet her or him or they, or, you know, like it's just, it was so funny talking about words the other day, and how words are meaningless and meaningful. And so even expressing this it's funny, because I'm giving the meaning to those words because of the experience that I had, that we had. And so it's so much fun to play with words and to play with this experience, because existence is here to exist, to experience. So I'm here for all of it, sign me up, I'm ready for the next thing, the back, we could go back, we could go forward, we could shimmy to the left, we could shimmy to the right. Like I am just so happy to go wherever we want to go.
That's awesome. That's exactly the dance that we were talking about at the retreat.
Yeah.
Dancing through eternity, recognizing what it is and going, I'm going to make the most of that because I can. I'm here. Why the hell not? And I'm not invested in this stupid illusion of myself that keeps dragging me down and making things suck. Because that's really it. Once you stop making things suck for yourself, then there's a moderate amount of suck left in reality. And that moderate amount of suck leads to things that are better because you learn how to grow from them. You're not getting in the way. You're not like, oh, this sucks. Why do I have to go through this? Why me? Why not you? Get to work.
Yeah. Yeah, because I felt frustrated this morning. I was like, how is it that someone else can value me or what I am and I didn't value me? And it's like, but I always valued me because me was included in everything. And so we've never not appreciated what this was. It's just that I sold myself the story over and over again that I was just what I did. And I was only valuable for what I could contribute and what I could give. And that I made it harder on myself because I thought that that was the only way. And it's just so nice to be able to let it go, but not in the way where I think it's gone forever, just letting it go in this moment and relishing this moment for what this moment is. And when we make it harder on ourselves again, that's okay, because that's another opportunity to learn and to grow. And so I'm not looking for easy. I'm looking for nothing. I'm going to be wherever we're going to go. And if it's challenging, then we're having a challenging moment. If it's easy, we're having an easy moment. But it's just being here for all of it and not making an opinion that something is a problem. And that's what I was telling myself this morning. I was like, it's a problem that I can't value who I am versus what I can do. And I made the problem. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to do that again. But we'll see. We'll see what's the next problem that we create and how we end up swimming through that problem to seeing that it's not, and that we were always on that solution. We were always sailing through smooth waters. And it's just fun. It's just fun to see where things go. And I laughed. I cried and then I laughed because I was like, oh man, good job. Good job, Amanda. You gave yourself some work and we got it done. So, challenge accepted, challenge solved, bring on the next one, because we can handle anything because we are everything.
Exactly. It's almost as if the baseline is valuing yourself, and we're able to convince ourselves that we aren't, and have the perspective that we're not valuable. And like the baseline, those calm waters is the value. And we go through ups and downs where we get lost in other perspectives, but inevitably it's always there. It's always the base. But no, I very much appreciate you sharing all of that, Amanda. It is a powerful fucking insight that opens up a whole other can of worms to dig into, but it just deepens the recognition that there's nowhere to get. There's nothing to be that you aren't already. So yeah, I appreciate you very much, and excited for some upcoming in-person chats as well.
I know, 10 days. 10 motherfucking days and counting. I'm like, holy shit, it was just 12 days 2 days ago. I probably slept through the last 2 days being sick. And now I'm like, oh, this is great. I like this. Keep this up time. I like how it's passing. Let's just have another 2 days disappear. It'll be the weekend. We'll go do some Wing Chun. We'll come back another 2 days. I was like, I like the 2-day jumps.
No, as always, Amanda, we love it when you jump onto the episode. Thank you for sharing all of your successes. This is exactly what this is for, not just challenges and obstacles, but victories. Get in there, share your victories. We will, of course, see Amanda in the Patreon call after this. So anybody who would like to join us and hear more of how Amanda is doing and all of her wonderful insights, patreon.com/dualistic unity.
Yeah, I'll be
Thank
there.
you for being here.
Of course. Bye.
All right. Bye, Amanda.
All right. Wow, this is great. So I just want to do a quick shout out and say that if you would like to join us on here, you can do so by going to dualisticunity.com/ live. We have a short queue at the moment, so this is your opportunity. If you'd like to talk to us and ask a question, just jump right in there. Don't hesitate, leap, and the landing will become easier each time you do. We're going to let Tristan in, and Tristan would like to talk about grief. Tristan, welcome. How you doing, Tristan? Are you there? I think you may be on mute. No? Okay. Well, do you want to talk about grief for a bit, Andrew, until Tristan connects with us?
Sure. Yes. This is, I don't know. I always have like a strange hesitation to talking about this just because it's such a, I don't know, deep and personal experience. But yeah, no, I think, okay. Yeah, Tristan, we can't hear you. No. Maybe if you check the mute button in the bottom left, there's a little arrow. You just make sure your speaker is on something you can hear and your microphone. Okay.
Tristan is going to leave and try and reconnect, and then we will move on with the topic of grief, so long as that works. And if it doesn't work and he's not able to join us, we will still explore the topic of grief, because it's one of those experiences that's worth talking about, because it's difficult to do, because it's difficult to talk about. Of course, it's one of those topics that we have to get into from time to time because we go through it as people. And I think it really depends in terms of what we're talking about. And in regards to grief, if we're talking about mourning, we're talking about loss, then I guess we're going to find out in a second. Here he is. Hello, Tristan.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you. Welcome back.
All right, it's nice to be here. It's my first time doing any of this. I'm probably going to keep my camera off though.
No problem at all. I'm glad you could be here at all. You wanted to talk about grief. Would you like to fill in a little bit more about what you were hoping to discuss?
Yeah, it's an insight that I actually had recently regarding grief. So I had a friend that I was close to for quite a few months, and he felt triggered from things that were out of my control, like a fluctuation in my voice. Reminded him of somebody that had harmed him in the past, which I'm not going to change my voice. I'm not going to compromise myself. And it was a variety of other things as well. So he distanced himself from me for like 5 or 6 months. And I felt like I needed to check on him. So I did. And the way that I went about it, he wasn't comfortable with. So he completely cut me out of his life, which I understand, I respect. But that grief was really sitting with me. And I was like, why is this so hard? Why is this so heavy? And I was thinking, and it was more so not because he had left, it was because I was trying to hold on to him. And through holding on to that pain, it wasn't necessarily him I was holding on to, it was this ideology. It was this image that I had constructed in my mind and said, well, this is how I view him. This is how I perceive him. I value him. I put him on a pedestal in a sense. And because of that, I devalued myself. So it felt easier to hang on to the pain rather than to acknowledge that it was just a part of myself that I wasn't looking at, and a way for me to hold on to him that wasn't even really him. It was this idea.
That's tremendous. Wow, that's a fantastic insight. I've been through that insight. That's huge. I appreciate you coming on the show and expressing that, because it's a big part of the healing process, is recognizing that, the pain isn't necessarily something to avoid, but something that you can look at and recognize that it often comes from overcommitment. It often comes from just getting too wrapped up in an idea of something and doing so for your own reasons. Somebody that we were talking to recently on the show, Anastasia, actually in the episode this week, was talking about the fact that a lot of our deepest wants and our deepest desires often come from some form of trauma in the past, from some form of relationship where we didn't feel enough, and so we get invested in these things, and rightfully so, but it's so helpful to recognize it and just stop yourself from beating yourself up for doing it and just see like, right, this is part of me growing.
Right. And it's not easy to recognize that. It's probably one of the more difficult things that I've had to realize, because I've put myself in a victim mentality and have been like, well, this pain is happening to me. I don't deserve this. This sucks. Why? But it's not that the pain was happening to me. It was that I was experiencing it because of things that I had gone through. And I was just giving it this label rather than seeing it for what it was, a reaction within myself that was necessary for whatever reason. It's there for a reason. It doesn't happen for no reason. Like, otherwise you wouldn't feel what you're feeling. Everything is important in its own right.
Well said. Yeah. Holy shit. That is very well said. Way better than I could have said about, grief and dealing with it. But I think the willingness, and that just shows, I think, your degree of, where you're at and the strength that you have with things. Because these are conversations that, this is what these insights lead to, but there is a lot. There are almost like a lot of steps that get to the point where you can finally recognize like, oh, this is me holding on to this. Oh, this is my opinion of the situation that's exacerbating, the suffering that I'm experiencing with it. And it always comes back to us, not that it's our fault for anything that happens, but at the end of the day, your experience is your responsibility. And that's the extent of your responsibility. And so there's kind of both sides of that how someone perceives you and what they're going through is their responsibility. It's not yours. And whether or not they recognize that isn't your responsibility either. But I think understanding deeply that everything we go through, every experience we have is pointing to something, has something in it that we can learn from, grow from. Everything we go through is an opportunity to look at another aspect of ourselves. And so I think those experiences, as difficult as they always are to go through, become more seen as, novel opportunities to experience something new by yourself, which you recognized very, very clearly. So that's awesome to hear, Tristan.
Thank you. I appreciate your insight. And it's not, like I said before, not easy to come to this. And it has taken quite a degree of suffering just to realize the value of the suffering. And I feel that suffering is what drives us forward in a sense, because if we were happy, then what would you do with that? Truly, like if you were happy, there's nothing else to accomplish. There's nothing else to do, no real means to move forward. So I feel that through the suffering, we can find our happiness. But it's only if you're willing to look at it for what it is, which is just an emotion. It's a neutral experience if you're willing to see it as that. So yeah, and just what you said about fault and responsibility, you guys have mentioned that quite a few times as well. And that insight alone has really helped me. Like, this isn't my fault, but I'm responsible for how I deal with this, because it all comes down to my perceptions and my actions and the way that I move about through life. And I actually had wrote something down before in my journal that it feels like I'm at an infinite intersection that's deserted, and there's tumbleweeds that are passing me by that seem to know where they're going better than I do. But the truth is that I am just like the tumbleweed. The intersection's always following me. I'm always moving, even though it seems like I'm not. And when I can just sit there and see it for what it is, the path that I'm on becomes all that much clearer. And that's what this has come down to, just realizing my fault and responsibility, like the difference between those.
Tristan, I want to say thank you, first of all, for increasing the quality of our show just by being here in the way that you word things straight up. That's beautiful. And I love the phase of the journey that you're in. And the fact is that I recognize that place where you're like, that suffering is going to help me. I'm not going to let it beat me down. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to make that shit work for me. And for a while, it becomes a great motivator. I used hell, my decade in hell, as a hell of a motivator, as it were, for years. I still remember very much what it was like to feel that lost and alone in all my shit. And after a while, though, it motivates you to freedom, and then freedom becomes its own reward. All of a sudden, the suffering itself almost starts to disappear into the background a bit. You always remember it, but it doesn't drive you as much as it used to. It's almost like you've left its gravity.
Right. Like it has this weight that just pulls you in, but it's like there's a certain pull to it that you get to decide your trajectory. And it doesn't seem like it at first, but it's true. It just depends on how you look at it. And I really appreciate that you said that the way that I word things and how I've presented this has brought value, because you guys have brought so much value to my life. Like I've been participating in this conversation for almost a year now, and so many insights have really helped me uncover what it is that I'm doing here. And of course, that isn't going to stop. Even when I die, that's not going to stop. Like it continues on and on and on. And it's all a matter of perception. And I just really, really appreciate what you guys are doing and how much that's impacted my life, and just seeing the darkness as another facet of our existence rather than the entirety of it. Because a large portion of my life has been just wallowing in this self pity, but not realizing that I was doing it to myself.
Beautifully said. And I appreciate everything that you have done in your life in the last year, and everything that you have done to, be able to resonate with anything that we say. That's not on us. This is half the battle is making the mouth sounds, and you're doing something with them. You're taking them and changing that collective mind that we all are. But I appreciate you very much, Tristan. That's, you word things incredibly well, so much better. As I said, when you dropped off for a sec, I was like, grief. That's, I don't know about, like, we didn't know what you were going to come with the description necessarily. And it's still something that I'm working through, because it's not an easy, there's not like a go-to thing for it ever. It's all within the conversation and the breaking down and the coming to the recognition that it's not an easy thing to go through. There's not a lot of things that are necessarily easy to work through or discuss or talk about, but it's just a lot of times in the discussion of them, in the ability to communicate about them, that, there is growth, there is learning, there is shifts and changes in all of us as we talk through it. So I very much appreciate everything you brought to this conversation right now. It was awesome.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Excuse me. Appreciate that and all the value you guys bring. And like you said, it's a conversation. It ebbs and flows, and it's not a conversation with just one person. It's multiple people, or even just more than one. And we all, taking part of it, have something to provide. So I really do appreciate you guys and just the opportunity to be here and connect with you at this point of existence.
Likewise. I'm so glad that you're a member of the community, Tristan, and I'm glad that we had a chance to speak today.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to doing this again sometime.
Hell yeah. And seeing you at one of our events, which I'm sure will happen near you at some point.
Oh yeah, I really hope so. That'd be fucking awesome. All right.
yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. And I'll just exit now so you guys can continue and go on to the next person.
Appreciate it. Great chatting with you, Tristan.
Thanks.
We'll definitely talk to you soon.
Yes, I look forward to it, and likewise.
Wow, what a fantastic insight. I'm inspired, man. I got to tell you, this day is just kicked off, and I'm just sitting here enthralled by how much insight and courage I'm seeing. Like it's so funny to me, because again, I've just been kind of doing this on my own for the longest time. I'm just not letting it get to me, regardless of what the world is doing. I know what I am, whatever that might mean. You know where I'm going with that. I was just grounded in it. There's this kind of blissful nonchalance that goes with recognizing that you're eternal, that, as Amanda said, you are both the character, the theater, the entirety of the whole goddamn thing, but you get to experience it just from this point in every variation. That's why I always find the concept of reincarnation to be so funny, because it's like, yeah, it's kind of limited. It's like, while it's true that you do have other lives, that's true right now. And that's a lot. And that's why we simplify shit like that. We're just like, no, I'm not that. I'm not that much. I can't be that much. It's like, but you are. You really are.
Your thoughts about how much you are completely irrelevant and not interconnected with how much you actually are. No matter how worthless you feel, you're not actually worthless. And your perception of yourself is in no way an indicator of what you are. So yeah, but this has been a blast. I mean, the insights that are coming through are fucking strong this week, leading up to the retreat, which is not surprising at all. But yeah, it looks like we got a decent amount of people in the Twitch chat right now, and hop in, join us, chat with us. We want to talk to more people. And
if you
I want
don't,
that to
Andrew
be
might
you.
start getting me talking about something controversial again.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah, I mean, I got some stuff we could get into. So you wanna? I don't think
I wanted to point out something very quickly first, and it's just that last week we released a movie review episode on Fight Club, and if you haven't checked out that review yet, definitely go and check it out, because that movie's awesome. One, and two, there were so many parallels to Dualistic Unity. Not that we have an underground fight ring, but just in the facing of our fear, in the coming together, and the recognizing that we are all in this together. That was actually one of the insights I got from Fight Club, was that it's very much talking about the experience that we're having, the subjective experience that we're having. So go and check that out. I can't recommend it enough. The review for Soylent Green will be coming up later this week. If people are not aware of what Soylent Green is, I definitely recommend that you go and check that out. It is a movie from the 70s starring Charlton Heston. It's very much about overpopulation, speaking of controversial topics. So go and check out the movie if you haven't yet, because the review will be out in the next few days.
Yeah, it's a great movie also, and the trailer doesn't do shit for justice for how good the movie is. Like, I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, Ray, come on, dude, we can pick something better. And then I watched it, I was like, holy shit. Like, the trailer is a 0% indicator of the movie at all. It's crazy how brutal some old school movie trailers are. It's like, it's fascinating. It's like they didn't want you to watch the movie. And but you know, who knows? But I think us saying that we're going to start talking about something controversial is actually keeping people from calling in, because I think they want us to talk about controversial things. So we're not going to talk about anything controversial unless someone comes on the call right now, and then afterwards maybe we'll talk about something.
Hey, I like that. That's right. You got to take a leap. If you're going to make us take the leap, you got to leap with us. We're all in this together. Absolutely. And if you're not going to do that, then we're just going to talk about some exciting stuff that's kind of happening. Did you know that we're writing a book? I just wanted to mention that to people, that Andrew and I are in the process of writing a book. It's got a really good title. I don't know if we should tell you the title as yet, because you're not a tier 3 supporter. At the moment, the only people who are aware of the book or have any access to what we've written so far are our tier 3 supporters. It's one of the ways that we're saying thank you, as well as the credit roll at the end of each and every video episode. If you haven't noticed this yet, at the end of our video episodes, there is a credit roll where we thank our tier 3 supporters for helping make this possible. So if you have a business, for example, or a podcast, and you would like to help support Dualistic Unity, this is an excellent chance for you to get that mentioned in the credit roll of each and every episode. And considering that we are almost at 175 episodes, that's a lot of episodes, because we're not going to stop going from here. At some point, we're going to crack 1,000 episodes. I just wanted to mention that we just released episode 73 of the Classic series. That was the 73rd Classic Dualistic Unity episode.
Wow, that's fucking awesome. So what is that? Almost a year and a half coming up on, because I think, what did we have? Maybe 1 week where we missed the Classic episode when I was just too deep in my own shit to get through. And that was back when we did one a week. That's so fucking funny. That's wild that for so long we it was strictly one. Because now what are we at? Like almost 30 weeks of community topics. So that was over half a year now. So for the first, I don't know, 9 months, we were doing one a week, and then community topics, that was our second. And now obviously it's like 5 days a week right now. But yeah, I mean, it's been a fun ride to say the least. It's fun, and I'm excited eventually to do our reviews of our own episodes. We're gonna talk or like, watch, starting with season 1, episode 1, watch it for a bit and then talk about insights. And because I have gone back to the early ones to just clip them up, but I don't really get a feel for like what the episode's actually like, because I'm just looking for clips. And it's funny looking back how many things we touched on there, and how many things you brought up, or sometimes even I brought up and like glazed over. And looking back, I was like, holy shit, we were talking about the same sort of thing. And it's like, because that's the thing with this conversation, you keep circling around the same sort of insights, but each time you come back to one, it's like there's a depth to it based on your own experiences, your own life, things you've been through, and it's always perfectly appropriate to the depth with which you get into it the next time around. But it's funny, even when people they'll say that they've been through they understand it all now, they've unwrapped everything. It's like we're not even remotely close to unwrapping like a percentage of it, and we're still working through. So yeah, that's exciting though. I think is that there's no end to the unraveling of what you are.
Nope. It's just that your brain keeps settling on a concept because, again, it's kind of like establishing a new base camp. This is where I am. I'm going to settle on that for a bit, because otherwise it's going to be difficult to talk to anyone. Because that's it, right? We use concepts as a form of communication, but we're not talking about concepts. We're talking about the recognition of what is, which is this infinite ongoing recognition, because what is so fucking vast. You could stare at everything in the universe for your entire lifetime and not even come close to a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent. You could have 100 years on this planet at your age right now. Let's just say I gave you 100 years, Andrew, at your age with your current level of physical fitness. And I just said, here, you got unlimited money. You can travel anywhere you want to go. You wouldn't even make a dent in all of the places on this planet alone. On this planet alone, let alone every fucking thing that could possibly exist. So yeah, it's an ongoing journey and it never ends. And I'm very grateful for that. As Amanda was saying, I'm grateful for existence, because it's awe-inspiring when you are not in the way. When your head is up your ass, all you see is shit, right? But take your head out and there's a big fucking universe out there. And it's way more entertaining than your stupid shit. It's just recognizing it. But the hard part is making that leap. The hard part is looking past your pain and going, I don't have to feel sorry for myself for going through this. That doesn't diminish what you've gone through. That in no way takes away from the hardship, from the suffering itself. But it does take away from the fact that it has to doom you to a life that it means something about you forever. That it has determined your trajectory just because you're suffering. It doesn't have to do that. You have choice. You can influence the flow that way just by, again, as Tristan was saying, changing your perception, stepping back, understanding it doesn't have to define you. It's just something that's an opportunity, something that you can use to direct a new path. Unless you resist it, in which case it's directing your path instead of you directing your path.
Yeah, you are not doomed no matter what you think you are. That's what I've been going through. You've been in some of those comments from the last video. It's so funny. I post some videos and I'm like, all right, this is about as least as uncontroversial as I've gotten in a while. And then there's so many fucking angry people in that last one that I was talking about, like, depersonalization, derealization. And like, people were mad at the tone with which I used to say those words. They were like, they're very serious. You can't say it like that. Like you're passing them off as something that's just, exists inside of my head or something. It's like, well, yes and no, as does everything. But it was interesting how many people and how many people too, they'll leave comments. I don't know if you saw any of these on that video, but they'll say like, I normally agree with you on a lot of your videos, but I don't know, there's something about this one that makes me uncomfortable. And then they'll go back and forth and then end up either they end it with, but I didn't watch the whole video, or but I do see what you're saying, or whatever it may be. And it's I don't know, some of the comments these days are getting weird. They're like, I totally agree with you, but I think there's something wrong with this, and I don't know what it is, but I think there is. And it's like, what, you're a little bit uncomfortable, and like there's something that I said that didn't quite sit right because you're unwilling to, let go of your false certainty. Like it's interesting how they'll say like, this is a great video that helped a lot, but also I don't like it. I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? It's interesting to see like the back and forth, but a lot of people were just mad about me. I don't know, like they were saying like using pop psychology, like you're not a psychologist, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, okay, regardless of what you think of me, have you given a shot to what I said in the video? Like, have you tried it out? Maybe have you given yourself the opportunity to question some of those narratives you're holding on to so tightly? Do you wonder if maybe they're not actually the truth? And it's like, I'm not saying that there's anything set in stone. I'm saying that there isn't anything set in stone. You're resisting that and the ability to learn and grow from questioning what you're holding on to so tightly. But yeah, I don't know. I thought there was a bunch of funny comments on that video.
There often are. That's kind of the point, though, is because the closer you get to the core of things, the more uncomfortable people get. But more often than not, that discomfort is coming from the fact that I hear what you're saying, it's making sense to me, but I have this nagging feeling that a lot of the people I know aren't going to like it. And that's it. That's honestly a lot of the time what's going through their head. And I had the distinct pleasure of talking to somebody who I hadn't seen since high school. And it had been a good long time, like easily 15 years. And we had never spoken since high school, but we ran into each other. And so we went and had dinner, and we were talking, and about a half hour in, he's like, you are the same Ray, right? Like, he was just like, who the fuck are you? Because it was totally different. It was like night and day, and it just blew his mind. And so after dinner, I'm like, well, let's go do some karaoke. We'll shoot shit. I'll talk to you about stuff in general. And he's at this point in his life where he did all the right things in terms of doing well in school, getting the good career, getting the good paycheck, owning a condo downtown in this city. Like, he lives very comfortably, has very little in the way of personal skills, in terms of he's not very confident, and he doesn't put himself out there despite doing things that are meant to challenge him and make him more confident. It's very much, I guess, forcing himself to do something as opposed to recognizing that he can do that thing. Like, he's still trying to be someone, the kind of person who does these things that shows confidence without actually being confident, that kind of thing. And so we had this conversation over several beers, and I was talking about identity and the freedom to do what you want, and the pull of society, of course, and the pull of the ego in terms of always needing to be more, always living via comparison to assumptions of everybody else. And he got it. He was just like, wow, I got to tell you. And after a while, like, he really got it. He's like, it makes me really uncomfortable. And it's just because it means that everything I've invested in isn't going to work. Like, what you're telling me is that the suffering I'm going through is going to continue if I keep doing the things I'm doing. And I don't like that. So, because I'm so heavily invested in it. He actually said this to me. Straightest answer I think I've ever heard in my life. And at one point he even said, and it puts me at odds with the world. And so it's just too much. And he recognized it as such and turned his back on the conversation, despite understanding that it could lead to freedom, understanding that it could lead to potential, understanding that it could lead away from the suffering that he was going through each and every day. He just doubled down because it seems too big.
Damn, that is kind of brutal, but also like eye-opening, and like I respect the fuck out of the guy too. Like all those things at the same time. But it's interesting because I actually had a conversation with someone. I mentioned this conversation last week on Patreon, just about, digging into the depths of this kind of probably a similar conversation as you had with your friend from high school, and you dig in more and more and more, and they got to a very similar point where they were like, they were doing the whole, oh yeah, but we're biological, we have certain, we've been tribal for a very long time, we need each other, and we were going through with identity and whatnot. And I was like pushing, we were pushing on, or I was pushing on religion a little bit, and they were like, yeah, I recognize the issues with that and all the distortion that it causes, but it seems like we're kind of at a point where that's the best we got. And, at least having just a few religions people can feel comfortable in is the best thing we can do. And I was like, yeah, but, religion is inherently divisive. Having a handful of religions, even just 5, is everyone's going to be divided. That's going to cause a lot of, pushback. People disagree on certain things. There's inherent disagreement based on your belief system. And so when it comes down to it, when you recognize some of these things more deeply, like the only true religion is none. The only true religion being, the etymology of religio being, what is it, bind together or something with unity. It's like having multiple religions is like an oxymoron. Doesn't make any sense. And so we were going through that, and he kind of got it. He was like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but like, that's a lot. You really think that that's worth, it was kind of like, you really think that path is worth trekking down to that degree? Like, you don't think that's too much for humanity to stomach that? It's like, I don't know, if I've recognized it, if I'm willing to go through it, why should I think that not everyone else could possibly go through it? And what's the alternative? Knowing that, seeing it, and turning my back and being like, no, you're right, too much. It's not even worth making a dent in. Fuck that noise. Like, god damn. It's at least, I can't fathom discussing anything else. Like, once you see it, it's nothing compares. So yeah, no, it's not too big because it's all me anyway.
That's a big problem, right? Is that when we go through these phases at first, we're just like, I have to do something about all that. And you're like, actually, it's way easier than it sounds. You just have to relax. It's really all you have to do. And we don't get that because we don't immediately get the whole, oh, right, division doesn't exist, right? We're still too busy focusing on the fear and the suffering, right? So that's a whole other part of the path. And you really just have to commit. We have Mark in the waiting room, and I'm very excited for that because, of course, Mark is always insightful. And I'm just going to let him in right now. Mark would like to talk about being afraid to speak and be on cam. And that is definitely something that often comes up because, as we've said, and as we've demonstrated in this call-in episode, not a lot of people want to be on cam right away. And it's okay. It's okay to do that. It doesn't matter how you are joining us whatsoever. You could come on and just show your picture and chat with us, and we would still make it work. Just keep that in mind. Mark, buddy, great to see you.
Hi,
Mark,
can you
what's
hear me
up?
okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just kind of felt the urge to call in regard to the, where you were talking about being afraid to speak, being afraid to be on camera and those type of things. And I just have a lot of firsthand experience with that. And I'm I'm never the person to be the one up front. I don't go out anywhere social alone. I always have to have somebody that talks a lot so I can hide behind them. I consider it I consider it a win if I actually drive somewhere, even if I don't go in, because I'm one of those people that I've done that so many times. If I even make it that far to drive somewhere and not have the guts to go in, just for fear of what people would think. And when I joined Patreon back in December or late November, early December, I was physically ill the first time I joined the call. Um, I did get on camera pretty quick because I forced myself to do it. But then, the longer it went and the more that I, you know, was there and got more comfortable, recognized faces, from meeting to meeting and things. I just and listened to all of it. I just kept pushing myself. But what really was weird is that it's all in your head, and you always know that, but you just don't think about it. But it just started. Through all the conversations I was being able to listen to and participate in. It just I started thinking, and I was like, you always when you see people that are just that they don't care what people think, and that's all that you think about. But you see people like that, and I think most of us would probably agree that when you see people like that out, or you encounter people that you can see visibly that obviously they usually stand out. They're usually might be a little different than the norm or whatnot, but people that are being more free with themselves, and that they're not thinking about these things as much as you. And you always kind of secretly admire them, even if for some reason maybe they have a clown suit on or whatever, and it may be in a place where that might not seem appropriate for our conditioning or whatnot, but still, and somewhere inside you're always like, wow, that person just don't give a what. And you imagine how good that would feel. But then that's what I started thinking, what's different between me and them? And are they always better looking or whatever? No. Are they always smarter? No. Are they always more accomplished? No. It could be anybody. It's just, I mean, you see all kinds of examples of people that seem to not care as much about what everybody else thinks. And then this became really real to me, that the only difference is they're not paying attention to what everybody has some kind of thoughts before you go into any situation, but they're not paying as much of attention to it as me. And that's all it is. I mean, I tried to think, is there anything else that there could be? No, there's really not. It's all both in both of our heads. And it's just, it's probably quieter for that person because they've not been giving it as much attention. But otherwise, it's just a matter of making the decision to stop giving it so much attention. And I don't know, it just became really tangible for me, so that's, like I said, I mean, I was scared to death. And almost everybody says this when they first come on or call in or whatnot. Almost everybody says it. And even just the other day, there were two people that I swear just write some of the most eloquent essays in Discord ever. I enjoy reading everything they say. And they expressed, hesitation at speaking. And I was like, what the? But anyway, it just proved to me that yes, we all have that to some degree, but the only difference is deciding to just go forward, which is true in everything we talk about. It's just moving forward despite it. And so I think it also comes down to, if you have this place you're comfortable where you hide all the time, which I definitely 100% do. It's, anytime I've pushed myself before, it's been a matter of how much I wanted it, compared to dealing with the discomfort of coming out of my little hole for a bit. That doesn't mean, if I didn't come out, that doesn't mean I didn't really want it. But there's still degrees, and that still is the only difference, is how bad you wanted it. Because when you wanted it bad enough, you did it. You just decided to ignore those thoughts, and that's all it takes every day. And and it still surprises me now. I'll be on these calls and video, and I talk and things, and I even have been a guest and on And so I'm still shocked that I'm doing these things, but it's just because, well, for instance, I wanted this really bad because I didn't have anyone else to talk to. And I needed, I wanted to connect and to share. And so I wanted it bad enough that I did just move forward, but that was the only difference. And now, I participate a lot and I'm still shocked at it, but I'm still doing it. And you know what? Everybody that has been on any call or call in or anything has expressed this, which is almost everybody. I have never heard anyone say anything in any manner whatsoever that I was like, oh, I can't believe they said that. I've never thought that, but that's what I thought everyone would think of me, of course. But I never have ever thought that one time. And everybody communicates differently. Everybody's from different backgrounds. We have people from different countries. I mean, everything. It's amazing, really. It's really amazing. It's just a great feeling. But we're all the same, and it's just a matter of if or when you decide that you're going to ignore certain thoughts or not and push forward or let them hold you back. And I'll speak that from experience. And that's why when you speak up, we say these things all the time, but I think we can all speak from experience as well. That I've never, you're not going to regret it. Every time you do it, it gets easier the next time. You prove to yourself that you can do it every time you do it. And every time you do, your threshold gets higher for what you're scared of. And it's just been a life changer for me, and I'm almost 50 years old. So just please think about that. The only difference is that they're just other people that you may look at and think, wow, how can they be that way? They're just deciding to do it. They're just doing. They're not holding on to those thoughts as hard as you are. And it is possible to let them go. And I haven't let all of them go. Some of them are 20%, some of them are 30%, some of them are 5%, some of them are 90%, though. I've made progress, and I just know it just keeps building. So take that step, because this is from experience. It does work.
Fuck. Yeah. Well said. I don't think I could say it any better than that, but it's absolutely it. The key right there. You got to feel it. Do it. Go for it. And you have been a fantastic example of someone who has done that. Like, it's been fucking awesome to see all of the changes you've made, Mark, over the last, what is it now? Like fucking 4 or 5 months. It's crazy. Gone that quick. But yeah, to see each and every week just be more and more willing and to share the recognitions that we're all kind of seeing, and you're just, as you go through them, willing to share and recognizing them in yourself. Like, oh, I always thought this, and then I experienced it, and it wasn't what I thought. Oh, this is a possibility. And sometimes it makes you wonder with, the internal feelings, if it isn't just you getting to the point of the person who seems very confident and able to articulate things well and speak without fear, if it isn't just over and over and over, like there's a number that you just, you feel the feelings, you go through the fear, and you do it anyway. You do that 10 times, no matter how the situation goes, it's still going through it every single time. You're adding to the bucket. And so, maybe it's 100 times for someone, and all they have to do is feel that fear and do that thing they're afraid of, regardless of the outcome, regardless of what they say, regardless of what they do. They just have to feel it and do it. And that's it. And each and every time it gets easier. And by the time you do it 100, 1,000, 10,000 times, it's like, oh, I used to think that, like, those are still there, but my perspective of them has completely shifted, and they have, a percent of a percent of a percent of the weight that they used to. It's just going through it.
Yeah, I'm shaking right now. I mean, I am. I was a nervous wreck. I am. I'm just like, and I actually brought the form up a little earlier, and then I canceled it. I still do this shit. I still do it. But I'm pushing through it some more than I used to. It just feels so good. But yeah, I mean, my video has probably been slightly shaking the whole time. I'm not Mr. Confident now by any means, but it's just a process. But actually, it's what we're here for, to grow that way. And there is no limit to that growth. So, I still hate dealing with it in some ways, but I do get more joy out of exercising it now, going through the processes. Sometimes I don't go through with it, sometimes I do, but there was a time when I'd never went through with it. So there's that.
I appreciate your appreciation for the journey, because that's really it. Like, it's just like anything else. At first, you're just kind of like, I don't want to do it. Right. And then finally, you're just like, fine, fuck, I'll do it. And then you're like, that was actually pretty good. I can do that. And you start to get a taste for it. But it really is that. It's getting that taste for freedom. It's getting that taste for, oddly enough, responsibility. And I know for years, I hated the fact that I had to be responsible. I had so many reasons to be a victim to my life. I had so many justifications for why I was fucking miserable. It never dawned on me that everybody does.
Yeah, exactly. I'll still for some of our calls get like really fast heartbeat before it. And like sometimes I don't even know why. I'm like, fucking, hey, I've almost done this 200 times. And like it still comes up. It doesn't go away. It's just your perspective of it. Now I got, I'll smoke a little bit of weed just to force myself into that. I'm like, all right, we're feeling pretty good on these calls, pretty comfortable going into it. Let's smoke some weed and get a little anxious before it, just so we have something to work through. And so yeah, sometimes I'll do that just to force myself to go through it. But yeah, I still remember like when I was at or really anytime doing something like karaoke. I was in when I was in Costa Rica last fall, I was there by myself. So like, yeah, I had a few people that I had met over the weeks that were there with me, but I was pretty much there just like fully by myself. And I still remember like writing down the song on the little piece of paper, like walking up to the guy, the DJ. There was like 10 people in front of me. So like my heart was kind of started beating pretty fast the whole time and going through it. And it was interesting. It's interesting to like be in the experience and then like leading up to it and being aware that it's like, this is just me clinging to, an idea of what I think it could possibly mean about me, what certainty I feel like I'm clinging to with this. And yeah, and then going through it, and then it's like you're in it, and then you get through it and you're like, oh, all right, that was actually kind of fun. But there's still always some degree of it. And over time, it's like it just diminishes, kind of like a curve, that like an asymptote doesn't quite hit zero. It's still in there. And I actually gotten to a point where I appreciate that. Like I've gone into situations like a guest on a podcast or something where I had zero, like, my heart was super chill going into it. And I almost wished I had been a little bit more amped, because there's like an energy that comes with that, and like a willingness to kind of just go into each question or each comment or each thing that you say without thinking behind it. Like I felt too relaxed going into certain things. And I think it actually hindered my, not performance, because it's like that's not measurable necessarily, but to a degree, sort of like I was almost more caught off guard because I wasn't as like amped and ready. And because anxiety and excitement are basically the same feeling. And without that, it's like, and when you're not on either end, it can, I don't know, there can be an extra element of energy that comes with the nerves a bit.
Yeah, because they're just bringing you closer to the present, right? Like we're not quite sure what it is we're feeling. We just tend to label it like that's anxiety, that's excitement. And it's like, right, but what does that mean? Like just feel it. What does it do? It draws you closer to the feeling. And that's it. It's clearing away the debris so you can interact with reality in a way that you possibly need to right now. It's trying to get you to pay attention. If you go looking for reasons that you're anxious, you're running in the opposite direction. You're actually running into the mess. And so you're going to be even more confused. And then you're going to have conflict with reality. Whereas if you just go, fuck it, I'm anxious, jump in, let it unfold. At the end of it, you'll go, that was a really big conversation. I had a great insight in there. Could it be that maybe I wouldn't have had that conversation or the insight if not for the energy that was driving me through what I interpreted as anxiety?
Yeah, exactly. It always comes down to that perception, and you don't have to tell yourself a different story about it. I think that's what a lot of people get caught up in, and it's like, okay, I'm not liking this story. Got to tell myself another. It's like, you don't have to tell yourself a story about it at all. You can just feel it and jump in, take that step, and recognize and realize and understand that you're going to land. Where you're going to land, you don't know. How you're going to land, you don't know. What you're going to learn from how much you wobble on the landing, or how much that wobbly landing is going to resonate with someone else, but you know you're going to land because there's nothing else you could possibly do. Inevitably, we all land, and there is a lot to learn along the way of that process of leaping and landing and leaping again and landing again. Like that's it. And as we just settle upon the inability or the lack of desire to continue to leap out of whatever it may be, fear or complacency or what, we stop learning, we stop growing, and there's going to be some discomfort to that growth inevitably, but that's part of it too. It's absolutely a part of the process and is very necessary to this experience.
Yeah, if there's something about your situation and you do have thoughts that you maybe would prefer that it changed or that it's something different, you got to remember that I don't think there's any change, whether good or bad, that is not going to come with discomfort or unsettling feelings, because if something's changing, then you're doing something haven't been doing. It's different. So it's, they don't have to be good or bad. You want to have some kind of feeling, but if you can't experience any change without that feeling. You can't stay 100% comfortable and have something and experience change. So if you're not willing to look at that discomfort differently, quit labeling all discomfort as bad and just taking it for what it is. But if you want anything to change, you're going to have to feel some. So, and like I say, most of the time it's, sometimes it's not so, maybe it wasn't how I wished it would went, but many times it is. So, but there is always going to be discomfort, but it can be exciting. It doesn't have to be something dreaded, but it's going to be there. So if you want something to change, there's going to be something there. You're going to have to feel it. But if you're not wanting to feel anything, then you can't expect anything to change.
Thank you so much for making that point. That is very much the point I was making at the beginning of this episode, is that nobody can do it for you. You have to leap. There's no way to avoid the discomfort. You have to leap. And if you don't, you know where you're going, the same place you are.
Yeah. And I think people underestimate the impact that they have when they get into a situation that they're unfamiliar with, that they're uncomfortable with, that they're worried about. This call-in show, any of our group chats, for example, like when someone gets in and is worried, is nervous, is having a tough time, and they continue walking through it, like they don't understand the impact that they're having on everyone else that's there, because everyone else who isn't jumping in, isn't participating in the conversation, it's not that they don't have things to say most of the time. Sometimes that's the case and people are just chilling, they're just listening in, but most of the time people are just as worried as you are, as anyone jumping into the conversation is, to do it. And so you being able to do it, and despite the nerves, despite the feelings, and walk through it, that changes the whole room. That changes everyone's perception of getting into it and doing it. And so it's powerful. Every time anyone leaps, change everything.
Absolutely. Mark, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. We haven't actually had the timer on because there was nobody in the queue.
I was wondering.
Well, we love chatting with you, and anybody who would like to hear more from Mark or watch more of his incredible fucking progress, join us on Patreon, because he's often in the groups and he adds so much to the community in so many ways. He's actually one of our moderators on Discord now, and he's going to be coming to meet me in person very shortly. So I'm very, very excited about that. But Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you both more than you'll ever know. Talk to you soon.
Great chatting as always, Mark. Talk to you soon.
Now, unfortunately, although we did do our best to try and get people involved in the queue and whatnot, we are down to the last 9 minutes of our show today. And so unfortunately, there isn't enough time to have any more people on the show. We are going to wrap this up with some thoughts about the day, some thoughts about the incredible insights that we've had today, as well as a little bit of news for anybody on Patreon Tier 2 who would like to join us after the fact later on. We're going to be talking a bit more about not just the upcoming retreat in April or the upcoming retreat in the Netherlands in November, but another retreat happening in April 2024. And we've just recently decided on this. We're still working through the details, but it's coming together and it looks awesome. So we're looking forward to talking about that in the Patreon call that follows this episode.
Yeah, I am pumped for that journey and everything that's going to come of that trip, because it may be an extended one. We'll see what ends up happening, but we got a couple different thoughts in the queue options there. But yeah, it just comes down to having the conversation, jumping in, doing it, learning, being willing to question everything about yourself and reality being the same thing eventually is what you may come to. But yeah, I appreciate everything. I love Mark hopping in here because he always has so much good shit to share and so much applicable shit to share. Like, I think that's what I love most about all of these conversations is, as much as we enjoy digging in and getting deep into things, like, it all comes back to the application. It all comes back to the freedom that's available when you're not clinging to so much certainty that you think you need to hold on to in order to feel temporarily a tiny bit better than you do right now. It's like there is a lot that you can let go of that can have more long-lasting freedom than you could ever fathom by just trying to feel better temporarily for a tiny little bit based on clinging to another thing, repainting the prison walls, as they say. But yeah, I love these conversations. Really appreciate everyone for being willing to jump in. And if you want to have these chats with a group, definitely hop in Patreon. They're always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want to mention something quickly because, as I said earlier, I've never really lost sight of the hell that was such a big part of my life. And I remember those moments, whether it was sitting on the floor in the bathroom or sitting in a closet or a stairwell where nobody would see me, or sitting just somewhere where I felt isolated and safe in a corner somewhere so that way I could cry and feel sorry for myself and really just experience the fact that I thought the world would go to shit at any moment and that I wasn't enough and never will be. And just the weight of that, like, you can almost feel the darkness just creeping the fuck in, and it just feels terrible and miserable. And I know very well that every single person who faces that and willingly says, yeah, I'm going to face that, is a goddamn warrior. And I'm not going to say I'm proud of you, but I am proud of you in the same way that I would be proud of myself, because it's a lot. And that's not meant to be a compliment, but it certainly is recognition of how much it takes. I recognize how much it takes. I understand. And I really am very grateful for all of the stories that we hear, for all of the messages that we get, just for everyone who is participating in this and willingly looking at the suffering and the fear and all of that division and going, I'm going to learn from this. If nothing else changes, I will. I have huge respect for that. It inspires me every day. And no, as long as you're out there and you're not giving up, I'm never going to stop. Neither of us are ever going to stop trying to find a way to facilitate all of this change. Just keep being potential. We'll come together. We'll meet you in the middle.
Amen. It is invigorating, exciting to see people going through it and willing to go through it, and willing, especially in the sort of shit we're going through as a society right now, to be willing to question that thing that everyone else is clinging to and thinks is buoying them, is actually just pulling them further into the depths of the ocean. So I have nothing but respect for anyone willing to take part in the conversation, because as freeing as it is on the other end, it is not comfortable to go through. It is not comfortable to talk to with people. They're going to call you crazy. They're going to say that, you might be losing your mind. Careful there. And it's like, no one else is talking about this. You think everyone else is wrong? You think everyone else is caught up in an illusion? Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, everyone is caught up in an illusion that they're not willing to face. It is not as uneasy, as uncomfortable as this conversation can be. It's really not that crazy to recognize. Like, it's not that, as deep as it goes, the recognition that you're not what you think you are isn't that crazy. Like, we're just clinging to a very thin veil of an illusion that is hindering us from recognizing that, realizing, like, here and now is all you know. You are here now. That is the extent of what you know. And we're piling on all this other shit to the point that, all people, someone in Instagram Q&A last week was like, so if here and now is really all I've ever experienced, then blah, 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 blah. And I was like, LOL, yes, here and now is all that you have ever experienced. All right, moving on. We can talk more about it. But it's like, it's this, oh, you believe that you're here now? It's like, motherfucker, have you ever not been here now? Have you ever experienced anything that isn't here now? Like, well, yesterday, yeah, you experienced it. You were here now. Were you not? Yes, I was. And then, the cognitive dissonance starts coming in. They start getting angry. They start, foaming at the mouth and just like punching their own fucking groin. And it's like, yeah, you can keep doing that if you want, but you don't have to. There are other options out there if you're willing to explore, if you're willing to, face a little bit of that discomfort and be willing to be the only one who recognizes it, who talks about it. But, luckily, here we are talking about it.
And it's catching on. That's the funniest part about it, because this conversation's always been there. It's just that, again, it is in opposition to the current driving force behind a lot of how we live. We've talked about this in terms of how not needing anything to complete you really undercuts the economy. This is all true. Not needing somebody or not believing somebody can represent your interests for you just by voting for them every 4 years, that seriously undercuts a lot of the government. Being willing to question undercuts a lot of what is currently the status quo. And that's why it's so important, because we know where this is going. We can see where it's going, just like we can see it in our own lives, right? So it's just, are we done? Are we done suffering? And if the answer is yes, then we have to look at the suffering. Nothing has changed. As above, so below, individually and collectively. It's just looking at it and not letting it beat you down. That's the answer. We had this conversation with Anastasia this week, and I loved the imagery. I actually made a video about this imagery because not only do we say it in that episode, but it's so true that not being yourself for fear of judgment from an egotistical world is very much like shuttering a lantern to protect the light from the darkness. You're not doing the darkness any favors. You're not helping it change. It's exactly what it needs is the light. Be the light. That's all you have to do. And that's easier than you might think. Just stop trying to be anything. You are already the light because you are existence itself. Just be that. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap up here, unless, Andrew, you'd like to toss anything in?
Just as always, excited for Patreon coming up soon. But yeah, you're not doing anyone any services by trying to be something else, something that you should be, something that everyone else is telling you that they think they should be because they have invested in that thing that they should be for so long that they couldn't fathom someone not investing in being something else that makes everyone else more comfortable, but isn't doing shit for anyone else's good. So just be you, which is not trying to be anything at all. And I don't know, it gets easier the more you do it.
Yes, it does. And I say that after 20 years of practice it does get easier. Hopefully, well, and I guarantee you're probably a faster learner than I am. And the nice thing is you have an environment to have this conversation in, and I did not. So if you'd like to take advantage of that environment, patreon.com/dualistic unity. We're going to be continuing in about 15 minutes for an hour and a half conversation, probably following up all of this fantastic celebration of our warrior-ness. So if you can join us, we'd love to see you. And if not, we will see you tomorrow.